Let's try from here.
Iho Ake Trust. He tuku atu taku tāpaitanga e mautohetia I te pire o ngā mātāpono o te tiriti o Waitangi mō te taumata o Ngati Whakaue Iho Ake Trust. O tira mō te iwi o Ngati Whakaue. So this submission is made on behalf of of te taumata o Ngati Whakaue Iho Ake Trust in opposition to the proposed Treaty Principles Bill currently before Parliament. In 2005, the taumata o Ngati Whakaue Iho Ake Charitable Trust was established in answer to aspirations from our people for the advancement of our mātauranga and the revitalisation of Ngati Whakaue reo mō ona tika. The trust is driven by its tino rangatiratanga and guided by ngā kōrero tuku iho from our kaumātua and kuia who have since passed. The philosophy of by the people for the people has guided the advancement of our educational growth and cultural capacity of Ngati Whakaue. The trust is an exemplar of by the people for the people in adopting a holistic approach to delivering its services and programs to the iwi. So, and a bit of just a historical narrative here. In 1840, Te Arawa declined to sign the Tiriti o Waitangi, opting to retain their own mana motu hake over their lands in Taumata. In 1858, Te Arawa also declined the offer to become the first Māori king. Te Arawa did not see the relevance of living under two sovereigns. Te Arawa retained its own mana motu hake instead, preferring to form its relationship with the Crown. In 1881, Ngati Whakaue entered into a formal relationship with the Crown to establish a township. The Rotorua Township Fenton Agreement of 1880 was signed on a leaseholder basis. Ngati Whakaue becoming the landlords and the Crown became the custodial managers, ensuring leases were procured and honoured. In time, the leases failed due to external influences and a total lack of Crown enforcement for failed payments by the leases. The result of the Crown actions forced Ngati Whakaue into poverty and destitution. Without its economic base to sustain itself and under political and economic pressure, Ngati Whakaue were forced to sell to the Crown, becoming almost landless. Following the Rotorua Township Agreement, the Geothermal Springs and Districts Act of 1882 was introduced as part of a wide-sweeping legislation to proclaim, without consultation, ownership of all government resources, geothermal resources, covering some 660,000 acres. Ngati Whakaue lost the mana over its land and its mana over the ngāwha and geothermal resources in its rohe. So considerable arguments have ensued regarding the interpretation of Article 2, mainly from mainstream society, particularly non-Māori politicians. There is nothing ambiguous about Article 2. It clearly states, ko te kuini o ingarangi, whakarite, ka whakaai, ki ngā rangatira, ki ngā hapu, ki ngā tangata katoa o New Tūreni, te tino rangatiratanga o rātou whenua, o rātou kāinga, o rātou taonga katoa. The Queen of England agrees to protect the chiefs, the tribes, sub-tribes, and all the hapu, all the people of New Zealand in the unqualified exercise of the chieftainship over their lands and villages and treasures. So I now turn to international law and the law of contra proferentum, which is a legal doctrine in contract law that states explicitly where ambiguities appear in a contract or are interpreted in several ways, and the interpretation must be interpreted in the way that disfavours the party that drafted the contract and its clauses. The rule of contra proferentum places fault on the party who drafts the contract and or agreement, a safeguard against the possible misuse of contract language by one party over another. The government's refusal to accept this international rule of law amounts to a form of constitutional negligence. So in 1987, in the infamous Lands case, the New Zealand Māori Council, under Cook P, President Cook, defined the treaty principles amidst Crown interferences with the treaty. As such, kāwanatanga and tino rangatira, partnership and the obligations to act in good faith, redress for past injustices, equality and active protection. Those were laid down in law in 1987. So to fulfill our obligations, Ngati Whakaue, our cultural, education and social obligations, Te Taumata o Ngati Whakaue supports the strategy of constitutional transformation, as expressed in the report Mātike Mai. Constitutional transformation based on a conciliatory and consensual democracy model. The 6 models highlighted in Mātike Mai are based on tikanga and the independence of each hapu and iwi, as expressed in the Article 2 of the Te Tiriti. So in 1861, a further example of failed government diplomacy, the Kohimarama Covenant, was in fact an attempt by the Crown to garner support against the growing influence and support amongst Māori for the Kingitanga movement. A united Māoridom posed a serious threat to the government's plans to assume total control of the country. Therefore, Te Taumata o Ngati Whakaue stands alongside other submitters against the Treaty Principles Bill. Our concerns are outlined as follows. The immediate and unqualified abandonment of the Treaty of Principles Bill because it contravenes total local and international laws on Māori and Indigenous rights. The bill is fundamentally racist and in the distorted reasoning of its interpretation, in particular Article 2 of Te Tiriti. The government should refer the concerns of Māori to the Governor-General as representative of the other treaty partner, the Crown. The recommendations from the Waitangi Tribunal, August 2024, should be adopted in full and referred to representatives of both these signatories at the time. Aotearoa New Zealand to establish a working party for constitutional change based on the recommendations outlined in the Mātike Mai report. Any constitutional change should honour previous national and international agreements, United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous People, Te Tiriti o Waitangi, e whakaputanga o te rangatira o New Tūreni, and to collaborate with other Indigenous nations to form a collective of like-minded people in which Indigenous rights are foremost. So, e whakalapopoto taku kōrero. So, te taumata o Ngāti Whakaue is firmly focused on the future of the organisation and the people it serves. And at this time, our thoughts go out to the kapahaka groups that are formed at that are gathered at Matatini to e whakanuia ki a tātou ahurea, ki putanō ki te motu. So on Thursday, the kapahaka o Ngāti Whakaue open the day, and this is our pride and joy of Ngāti Whakaue to the motu, putanō ki te ao. So I'd just like to reiterate on the words of going back many centuries to the wise words of Solomon. Kau e whakaneke atu te rohe tawhito, e whakatapatorea e o mātua ai. E whakatauki 22:28. Do not move an ancient boundary stone set up by your ancestors. And that was set up, and that's in a biblical term, by Solomon. In other words, do not change what your ancestors or predecessors have put in place. Koina taku kōrero, mihi atu ki a koutou, ki te whakarongo ki taku tāpaitanga ki a koutou katoa. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou, he pātai mai, kei a koutou.
Tēnā koe, Kingi, probably time for one very quick question from Huhana Linden.
Tēnā koe te matua Kingi, e potira mihi atu ana ki a Ngati Whakaue. I really appreciate your positive and future-focused submission today, particularly around the pathway to constitutional transformation and reiterating that proposals have been put forward that were evidence-based. Now, thinking about that mahi, is it your recommendation to the Select Committee that we should be promoting the fact that a national conversation is required and a commitment to a pathway to create our own constitution that is uniquely Aotearoa?
Aye, katika. E te toko ana tō kōrero. Aye, exactly. That's exactly how it should go. And as treaty partners, we should all come together and talk our way through it. Because there's only two societies here, two sovereign nations, and it's up to us to move forward together. And part of a constitutional transformation, I think, is well overdue.
Kia ora, Kingi. Thank you for your time this morning and for being before the committee. We appreciate you providing a presentation.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there, and I'm not going to bring up the other panel screen because we might lose this timestamp. I don't want to lose the timestamp.
Yeah, we'll leave it like this.
Yeah, we'll leave it like this. We'll leave this beautiful matua on our screen. Everyone is beautiful. Okay. So I do want to talk a bit about kawanatanga because it is really interesting. Especially when you look back over at He Whakaputanga, which was the 1835 Declaration of Independence. Sovereign power and authority was translated as ko te kingitanga, ko te mana I te whenua. Sorry, really bad reading of that, but there you go. I hope everyone can understand that. Whereas kawanatanga was used for any functions of government, implying administrative authority, not a supreme unconditional power. And I bring up the language used in He Whakaputanga because He Whakaputanga was drafted by James Busby. This is the same guy who also redrafted the Treaty of Waitangi to include that Māori should retain possession of their lands, forests, fisheries, and other property. So I go back to the earlier point that I made before, that in signing Te Tiriti, Rangatira gave the Crown kawanatanga, which is governance, not rangatiratanga, which is chieftainship. So essentially, it's in the treaty itself that you have two sovereignties, right? You have one that's controlling the assets of their own kind of like iwi shared assets, right? Because Māori tend to own things collectively. And then you have the Crown, who has basically set up shop to establish law for Pākehā. So it's really important to understand the language that's being used there. And when you look at the history behind the use of things like kawanatanga, it's really fascinating stuff. Stacey.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to add to that. Actually, you covered that pretty well.
Really good reading on this subject too is the cabinet manual. I'm going to put that in the chat so everyone can check it out. But it actually gives a really good breakdown on how the treaty should be interpreted when it comes to legislation, when it comes to writing policy. So it's like, yeah, do read that. It is quite insightful. I'm also going to link Ngā Mataporo, which is the principles, in the chat, so people can also read this. Please read this. I know it's a big document, but it's really important, and there's a lot of really good arguments in there. So yes, please do check out this this document. That's like a must read if you want to have an understanding of why 300,000 people have come out to protest against this. You will learn why. All right. Next clip.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. News, got the order, paper.